Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a massive, really foundational shift happening inside the world's smartest enterprises. We are looking at the critical transformation of indirect procurement. For a long time, this was seen as this feared, highly bureaucratic administrative function, just a lot of red tape. But as we'll see today, it is rapidly evolving into a powerful enterprise growth enabler. So if you want to understand how modern businesses are truly scaling, you absolutely have to understand this transformation.
Okay, let's dive right into this by immediately shattering a very common misconception. People often assume that because there are no physical factories stopping, no production lines shutting down, and no raw material shortages creating, absolute operational chaos, indirect procurement must be the easier path. It creates this total illusion of safety in the ordinary world of corporate buying. But, as we're about to explore, that assumption is completely false. To understand why it's so complex, just think about the sharp contrast here. When a procurement team negotiates for direct materials, like steel, people are discussing specifications, grades, delivery times. It's highly logical. It's math. But when procurement steps in to challenge a marketing agency or a top-tier consulting firm, oh boy, they are stepping onto an emotionally and politically charged battlefield. Stakeholders don't view these indirect categories as mere suppliers. They see them as growth enablers, brand protectors, trusted advisors. The debate isn't just about cost anymore, it's about creativity, reputation, and executive influence.
To navigate this incredibly complex landscape, we're drawing on the methodology of Supply Axis, who are a truly authoritative guide in this space. And what makes their approach so fascinating is how they completely reframe procurement's ultimate objective. They recognize that if you treat indirect procurement like a traditional factory supply chain, you are going to instantly create friction with literally every department head in the company. You need a completely different mental model to succeed here.
And this air traffic control model brilliantly illustrates that new mindset. Supply Mixes compares modern indirect procurement to air traffic control. Think about it. An air traffic controller's job is definitely not to keep planes grounded, right? Their job is to ensure coordination, visibility, and safety while everything moves at absolute full speed. Procurement shouldn't be a roadblock. It should be the control tower that keeps the enterprise's commercial ecosystem flowing safely and efficiently.
Let's raise the stakes for a second and bring this into the real world. Imagine you are tasked with managing a $300 million indirect spend portfolio. Just think about that number. On paper, the expectations sound simple enough. Reduce cost, improve governance, drive productivity. But in reality, you're sitting in the middle of massive contradictions. Finance is demanding savings. The executives want speed. Suppliers want more influence. And your internal stakeholders? Well, they are demanding total flexibility.
Because of all those contradicting demands, you immediately run into what is known as the invisible resistance. This is the immense, palpable political tension that arises the exact moment a procurement transformation begins. It doesn't start with a sourcing event or a big negotiation. It starts with defensive postures from your own internal teams. They start protecting their spend instead of optimizing it. And honestly, it's driven by one core psychological barrier.
That barrier usually sounds a little something like this. If procurement saves money, next year my budget will be reduced. That specific budget fear creates a really strong emotional narrative. Stakeholders subconsciously associate procurement with loss. They fear a loss of control, a loss of speed, a drop in quality, or a barrier to innovation. So even if procurement brings a highly intelligent, completely logical plan to the table, the organization will fight it. Not because the math is wrong, but because that emotional narrative triggers fear.
Which brings us to a really crucial piece of mentor's wisdom from the Supply Axis methodology. You have to change the conversation entirely. If you walk into a room using the old language saying, "We need to reduce your spend," defenses go up instantly, wall is built. But instead, try shifting to, "We are creating capacity for future investment." Actually, just think about how different that feels. That single semantic shift completely transforms the dynamic. You're no longer taking resources away, you are partnering with them to enable future growth.
Let's let that mindset shift really sink in for a moment. The strongest procurement leaders do not sell savings. They sell possibility. By exposing hidden inefficiencies, like duplicated suppliers or uncontrolled consulting scopes, you aren't just hoarding cash for the sake of it. You are unlocking funding for new digital investments, faster execution, better capability expansion. Basically, you become an architect of the company's growth strategy, rather than just acting as the budget police.
But even if you perfectly align your internal teams, there's a major external threat waiting for you in categories like software, consulting, and media. Consider this question for a second.
Why do suppliers go out of their way to bypass procurement entirely? Why do they prefer to deal directly with the chief marketing officer or the chief information officer?
Well, they bypass you because they view procurement merely as an administrative barrier. To them, you're just a compliance checkpoint that applies negotiation pressure. So they go build relationships directly with the executives, and when suppliers hold more influence than your internal governance structures, you face some seriously dangerous consequences. Scope creep becomes rampant, budgets escalate out of nowhere, stakeholders become completely dependent on a single vendor, and your enterprise-wide commercial visibility just evaporates.
Section 1. Governing marketing spend, balancing creativity with commercial discipline.
Marketing is arguably one of the most sensitive procurement categories in any enterprise. Marketing teams are deeply emotionally connected to creativity, brand identity, and customer perception. They're terrified that procurement is going to come in, destroy their creative magic, and slow down their speed to market. So, the crucial point is how you actually balance that creativity with necessary commercial discipline. Supply Access lays out 5 critical levers for this. First, you have to build an ecosystem so you aren't reliant on one single agency. Second, implement performance-based governance, moving way beyond simple hourly rates to actually measure real business impact. Third, you need spend transparency to map out all those hidden markups and media commissions. Fourth, set up operational governance, like quarterly reviews. And finally, you exert strategic influence.
And that strategic influence comes right back to the language of leadership we talked about earlier. When you tell a marketing team, we are not reducing agency costs, we are building a more scalable marketing ecosystem, you completely reframe your role. Using this exact wording shifts procurement from being a perceived threat to a strategic builder of their own marketing capabilities. You are giving them a better, more competitive roster of agencies, not just slashing their favorite vendor's budget. It's a game changer.
Section 2. Controlling professional services, stopping the leaking pipeline.
Professional services in consulting is a tremendously challenging area. Uncontrolled scope expansion here acts as a slow, invisible leak. Over time, as projects just quietly extend month after month, millions of dollars completely disappear without any real governance. But the true danger in consulting isn't just operational, it's knowledge dependency. This is a highly toxic internal belief that certain consultants are completely irreplaceable, or that only one specific supplier truly understands the business. When stakeholders believe that continuity matters more than commercial governance, massive budget bloat becomes completely normalized and expected.
To stop this pipeline from leaking, aggressive cost-cutting simply won't work. You need structural solutions. You need a commercial architecture that protects both business continuity and commercial accountability. This means demanding crystal-clear deliverables, utilizing milestone-based contracting rather than just signing endless retainers, doing active rate benchmarking, ensuring supplier optionality so you are literally never trapped, and maintaining really strong executive governance to oversee the whole shebang.
Section 3. The strategic transformation, orchestrating enterprise influence.
When you successfully apply these frameworks across marketing, consulting, IT, and beyond, you reach the ultimate reward. You redefine success entirely. At this point, stakeholders finally stop seeing procurement as a bureaucratic blocker and instead start seeing you as a proactive, outcome-driven partner. Now, what's really interesting about this concept is that the most successful indirect procurement leaders aren't the ones who can just hammer a supplier down on price. They are the best influencers. True success here requires you to balance cost, service, innovation, governance, and trust, all simultaneously. It is a delicate, high-stakes balancing act.
And this is the ultimate evolution of the procurement role. You cannot survive operating merely as contract administrators and compliance checkpoints. That is the old, transactional way. To thrive today, you must step into transformational leadership. You become commercial architects and vital business advisors. Indirect procurement is no longer just about buying services, it is about orchestrating enterprise influence.
Which leaves us with this final, provocative thought to consider regarding your own operations. Are your indirect procurement practices simply buying services, or are you orchestrating influence to build a faster, highly scalable business? The Supply Access methodology proves that those who master this balance do way more than just save money. They actively build the future of the enterprise. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this helps you rethink your own strategic capabilities.